Good morning. This week we are going to look at compounds, so let's say sugar, and we're going to figure out what its percent composition is. In other words, we're going to figure out how much of sugar is actually carbon atoms, how much of it is hydrogen atoms, how much of it is oxygen atoms, and breaking compounds down into what we call their percent composition. So ibuprofen is C13H18O2. So there's 13 carbons, 18 hydrogens, and 2 oxygens. And we kind of started this process in the previous weeks when we looked at, okay, let's make this table here. We have 13 carbons, right? And we know the atomic mass unit of carbon is 12.1. We get that from the periodic table. And so we would multiply 12.1 by 13, and we would get 156.13 AMUs of carbon. Right? And so how we figure out how much hydrogen is in there, how much oxygen is in there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to convert these into percentages, which is really easy. So basically, in order to figure out what percent of carbon there is in ibuprofen, we would take 156.13 and we would divide it by the total molecular mass, so 206.27. And then multiply that number by 100 because you would get a decimal, and we would find out what the percent mass is. So if you actually punch that into your calculator, you would end up with 75.7% of ibuprofen is made of carbon. So that's kind of what we're going to be working on today. Here's a great example of why this might be important in your everyday life for those of you who enjoy coffee, right? We want coffee sometimes to have specific amounts of caffeine in there. Some of you want coffee with lots of caffeine in it, right? Some of you want coffee with very little caffeine in it. And so by figuring out what percentage, one of the other things you'll be doing this week is looking at the molarity of something. So looking at, again, concentration. Really is what it is. How much caffeine do you want in your cup of coffee? Do you want a little? Do you want a lot? And how you calculate that. And in chemistry, we refer to that as molarity, or concentration of something. So this week, you'll be looking at percent composition. You'll be looking at how to calculate molarity or concentration of different substances in different situations. We're looking at chapter 6 this week. So as usual, you have the guided notes to do and then 2 other activities. So if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask.